Hey guys, Jerry from Showtime Audio. My voice is still a little messed up, so you'll have to excuse me. We have this beautiful Toyota Avalon. It's in for a noise issue. So the client is it does have the upgraded JBL system, and the client went to another shop and they tried to do some sound deadening and to solve an issue that he's having. The driver's door mainly buzzes as well as the rear deck. They did some deadener. We're not sure exactly what yet. We're gonna take it apart and see what they did, but the client wants us to get rid of the noise. So we wanted to just show you our process and how we go about figuring out how to solve the issue and how to actually get rid of the noise. So one of the things that we do, you might have seen it on our other video, is we have an app that we play test tones. So it's a set of frequencies, because the problem with using music is transient. In other words, it's like in and out, in and out, in and out. So it's very difficult to isolate. So what we do instead is we play every frequency till we find the frequency or frequencies that cause the buzz, and then that helps, we play that continuously, and that helps us to isolate it. Also, at the end of the job, once we've done everything, we can play that exact same frequency and see if we've solved the problem or not. So it's another one of those where we like to test, we don't guess. We want to know that we solved the problem. And I'm sure as the client, you want to know that you're getting what you paid for. So one of the ways we ensure that is by testing and verifying everything that we do. All right, so I'm gonna play an 80 hertz tone just so that you can see. And I don't know if you can hear that, but there's a really bad, I don't know if you heard it kind of go away. It's back, kind of goes away. So basically what it tells me, it's a mid-bass issue, because right now I'm playing around 80 hertz. 80 hertz is in the range of the mid-bass. Well, the mid-bass driver lives in the door. The subwoofer's in the rear deck. He also has a rattle in the rear deck, and I'm assuming that's going to be related to the subwoofer, right? So again, but as you can see, I can just turn that tone on, see what's going on, and see if applying pressure, applying environmental treatment or acoustical treatment solves the problem, and then verify that it did. So it's a process in which we can ensure the outcome. Sounds or vibrations are very difficult because it's still a car. No matter what, it's still a car. So you're never gonna get rid of every little noise, but you can get rid of 98% of it, where it might be very small stuff that's nowhere near that. That's pretty bad. I mean, that's pretty bad. It's pretty obvious. And this is a hybrid. So the problem with like hybrids is that they're very quiet. So you don't have the engine most of the time. Obviously, every once in a while the engine kicks in, but most of the time, if you're in hybrid mode, you can hear everything. So little noises become really annoying, because that particular car, like on an EV that has no motor or on a hybrid, those noises are exaggerated because you don't have the engine to mask that noise. All right, so we found what they did. There's no deadening on the sheet metal, the inner cavity, behind the speaker, nothing. So they focused on the door panel itself because that's what was causing, or that's what they think was causing the vibration. So what they did is, this is a piece of deadener, this is a piece of deadener, this, and this. So they put pieces kind of on all the big flat spots, which is what you want. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but see how it's not touching the panel? That is just floating. So it's not technically doing anything, because the whole point is it's not sticking either. So it's for it to make contact with the surface, because basically what it does is it adds mass to the plastic and makes it harder for the plastic to resonate. And again, it was an effort. They siliconed all the clips in, which is not ideal, and then they siliconed all the connection points and even where all the panels meet. Hopefully they got the silicone in between the panel. That would not stop the vibrating, because what's vibrating typically is two hard surfaces against each other. So unless you do something to stop those two surfaces from vibrating against each other, it's not going to solve the problem. Also, deadening the door, like the inner skin, the outer skin, will also help, because it'll make the energy transfer less to the panel. So the energy is coming from the woofer, right? The woofer is moving, causing the vibration. The vibration vibrates the sheet metal. The sheet metal vibrates the plastic panel. So if you can lessen or deaden the vibration of the sheet metal that's being transferred to the door panel, then obviously you have to do less work on the door panel to get it to go away. So it's not just about isolating all these little plastic points, it's also about isolating the energy from the speaker. Plus it will help the speaker. I mean, you'll just have so much more mid-bass and it'll just sound so much more solid. All right, so we're digging into this Toyota Avalon. And again, he had some deadener also done on the rear deck. Now this is where testing is the best way to do this, right? And with a tone as opposed to music. Music, it is very difficult to isolate it because you can't tell because it's coming in and out, in and out. Now, also, here's another one of my texts brought up a great point. You think it's the rear deck, and it's actually not. On this car, it's the headliner. So here you are throwing a bunch of money at the rear deck, and that's not the problem. It's not gonna solve it, right? So, rattles are misleading because they could sound like they're in one spot and be in a completely different spot. So we're gonna show you on this vehicle. Before we just take it apart and start deadening stuff, we wanna isolate where it is so that once we fix it, we can see if that solved the issue, right? So let me show you what my tech found. Go for it, Rob. But if you do this, pause it, Rob. So in actuality, it's not coming from the rear deck. It just sounds like that. The noise is traveling and making something up in this area vibrate. And also, I don't know if this was original build of the car, I doubt it, or the last shop when they took all this apart. But I don't know if you can see, but there's a gap. This panel is actually loose. See? The clip wasn't engaged. So the panel was just sitting in there or the clip was barely holding on. Let's try that one more time, Rob. Yeah, so it's this. So it's also right here in the center. So again, so you could take and throw a bunch of money at that rear deck. You could do as much as you want, and yes, it will quiet the deck and make the sub perform better, but that's actually going to make the rattle worse because now instead of the energy being transferred through all the sheet metal, now it's being transferred to the headliner and actually going to make the buzzing worse. So unless you address the core problem, you're not going to solve it, right? So this is where, again, like I said, take a little time and test, right? Do something to figure out exactly what the problem is and then solve that. So on the rear deck here, they deaden the sheet metal, but ideally you want to deaden around the sub itself. So whatever has the most energy. So this is where the factory sub lives. So we're going to deaden the sheet metal where it mounts and around it. We're actually going to remove this and put a plate. And so we'll deaden the entire area to make this a little bit more solid and rigid so that when you bolt the speaker in, it's kind of like gasketed between the sheet metal and the speaker itself. And then we'll also do some deadening on this rear, the panel itself to keep it from vibrating. But what we also figured out, and we dropped the entire headliner to do this. Basically, there's some tabs here that sit against the sheet metal and they're just literally vibrating. So that's why when you hold it, they stop. So what we did is that, and that's the majority of it. Believe it or not much noise is coming from the rear deck. It's actually coming from the headliner. We found the problem and then we deadened the flat spots and also put a gasket tape where all the clips went in. So basically to isolate the two hard surfaces, which is the metal and the plastic. And so that'll keep that from resonating. Again, you're never gonna stop it 1,000% because it's still a car, but it gets rid of like 95% of it in some cases, all of it. And also these panels were all loose. Some of the clips are missing and broken. Some of the clips were not even installed. So we're gonna fix all that and address the clips and put everything back in. We'll show you that. We just wanted to show you what another place did and why it's not technically helping, right? Number one is they kind of just siliconed everything. Here's the crazy thing though. Look at that. So, I mean, I don't know if you can see. I mean, silicone is typically almost impossible to get off, right? The problem is if you don't clean the surface properly, like Robert's doing over there right now, nothing will stick because the plastic, when it's molded, it has an oil built into it so that when they're pressing it, it will release from the mold. And so what they did is, in trying to help, they kind of just siliconed over all these, but these are pressure rivets. So these heat together, and I mean, there's no flex in that. If you were gonna do this, what you'd wanna do is, and they tried over here as well, you would try to get silicone or some gapping agent between the panels where the plastic meets, because that's the vibration, right? Putting silicone on top like this, these clips are, there's no reason, I mean, obviously you can do it. They also siliconed where the clips are, which is not a bad idea because this did have like some noise, but we're gonna show you a different way to do that that's more effective and still keeps it serviceable. And then same thing, see, look at this. I mean, all this stuff just, literally I can just peel it off. I mean, there's no effort whatsoever, right? And look at this. Look at this. Now here's the deal. See this? There is a slight gap in here. See if I can press on that. But they didn't put any silicone under it, like in between the plastic, right? So it's all just kind of this crazy mess on top, right? And then, see, so there's, I don't know if you could see that, but there's a huge gap. And it's like, at least, there was a little bit that leaked under some of it, but that's where you would worry, right? Anywhere you have plastic that's close to each other, that's gonna vibrate. This is a locating pin, so they siliconed around that. That locates the door. Right here by the switch panel, same thing. They were trying to solve the problem, but it's one of those, if you don't isolate the problem, it's gonna be very difficult to actually solve it. So right now, what Robert's doing is he's retreating the door and he's gonna do more surface area, press it down. He's gotta still roll it. And then we're also gonna clean this door and get all this unnecessary stuff out. And then on this one, they even did around the handle. They didn't do it on this door, but they did it on that door. And so give us a few and we'll show you the difference. All right, so we're doing stage 3 on this. So we've done the outside of the inside of the outer skin, the outside of the inner skin, and the inside of the door panel. So we've done this, still keeping access to all, these are clips in order to be able to pull this off and service the window motor, door handle, all of that. We've done all the major flat areas. So stuff that has a lot of shape to it, you don't need to do as much. And then for sure, we've done around the speaker. You always want to do around the speaker because that's where the energy is being transferred. So you definitely want to make sure that you're doing it around the speaker itself. And then back here, you can see we've done the whole, he's done top to bottom, the entire door panel on the inside. That makes a huge difference. Here, let me. See how that thuds? Now we're gonna do the back panel that's untreated. So I'm gonna have her do the same thing. We're gonna put the mic in there. Tell me that isn't major difference. Now, think about that in reverse, right? So the speaker's vibrating, causing energy to make the outer skin vibrate or resonate. So we're just doing it in reverse to kind of show you. Typically there's like a small spot or almost no deadener in the door panel. Anytime you have a large flat surface, you need to deaden it because it wants to resonate. the deadener will add mass and make it much more difficult for the panel itself to resonate, to vibrate. But just wanted to show you, so that's, you know, that's done. That's treated, this is not treated, right? But just so that we can show you how it is that we do this. We've now done stage 3 on the front doors. So the outside of the inner skin, inside of the outer skin, and the inside of the door panel. And the noise is gone. I mean, basically, you're never gonna get rid of it 100%. There's always gonna be slight buzzes or rattles because it's just moving parts. It has to come apart and go back together, but you can get rid of a great deal of it. In this case, we did. Also in the rear deck, we thought the noise was coming, or the client thought the noise was coming from the rear deck or the side panels. It was actually coming from the headliner. The energy was transferring up to the headliner, and there was some pieces in the headliner that were buzzing. Robert deadened the headliner, as well as deadened all the contact points where the headliner has this plastic spacers that kind of hold themselves to the roof. So he deadened that, as well as there was a couple harnesses that were just kind of loose and buzzing in there. So he deadened those as well. So now, it made a big difference over the factory. We're playing a test tone. You're never gonna do this in real life. Obviously, music is what you're gonna be listening to, but this allows us to kind of go through the whole spectrum and see if something's buzzing or not. All right, so we have it playing. And before, if you remember, you could really hear the buzzing here. And I don't know if you can hear that, and now you can't, right? And then you could also hear it really prominent in the back, and now you can't. All right. So I'm gonna, I can cycle through. '80s where we were experiencing the noise before. So we can cycle through the entire range of low end and just kind of verify that we don't have any buzzes. So this is just, like I said, this way it's much easier to isolate the problem and ensure that you fixed it, as opposed to just throwing money at it. Because you can just throw a bunch of money at it. In other words, just throw deadener, do all, silicone, whatever you're gonna do. But if you can't isolate the problem, like in our case, we may have been going after the rear deck, assuming it was the rear deck, and it ended up being not even anything with the rear deck. We deadened the rear deck anyway, just because we were already in there, we might as well. But we also ended up doing a lot to the headliner itself, which helped quite a bit with the noise, okay? So just keep that in mind. If you're doing it to get rid of a rattle, make sure that they have a process in order to actually solve the problem. And so you're just not throwing money at it.